The betrayal didn't come in shouts. It came in silence. My dad's silence, heavy as stone, as I laid the signed $3 million contract on the kitchen table, my contract, my victory. His eyes didn't widen. His jaw didn't drop. He didn't even ask a single question. Instead, he chuckled, a hollow sound that rattled inside me. "You've always been strong with yard work, Claire. Guess lifting shovels gave you some backbone. And my mom? She just smirked. Don't let it get to your head, sweetheart. You'll still need to mow the lawn before the weekend barbecue." I wanted to scream. Because just hours earlier, I had stood in the marble lobby of a skyscraper, where a CEO worth millions gripped my hand and said, "We're honored to partner with you." His words echoed in me like a hymn. His handshake was steady, full of respect. And yet, here, in this suffocating house, I was nothing but their janitor. Their yard hand. Their built and made.my name is Claire Bennett. And from wherever you're watching this, stay with me, because I need to ask you something. Have you ever had your greatest triumph twisted into nothing by the very people who were supposed to love you most? I grew up mowing lawns, scrubbing floors, fixing gutters, patching roofs. When my brother broke something, I was the one to repair it. When my mom needed help, I was her shadow. And when my dad barked orders, I obeyed, because obedience was the only form of love they recognized. But today should have been different. Today, I had broken free. That contract wasn't just a deal. It was proof I wasn't the maid they thought I was. It was my future, carved out with grit, sleepless nights, and the refusal to stay small, but they couldn't see it. No, worse, they wouldn't see it.my dad reached for the remote. The news anchor's voice filled the room, drowning me out. And in that simple motion, I realized something. This house had no room for my victories, but outside these walls? The world was waiting, and one day, my parents would choke on the weight of the words they had buried me under, because I was done being their janitor. The night after the contract signing, I didn't sleep. I lay in my bed, staring at the ceiling fan, listening to the hum of my parents' voices downstairs. Their words seeped through the floorboards. "She thinks she's somebody now," my mom whispered, her voice sharp with mockery. "She'll come back down soon enough," my dad replied. "She always does. We'll keep her busy. She'll learn." Learn what? That I was nothing but their tool? Their unpaid laborer? I rolled onto my side, clenching the sheets in my fists. The CEO's words replayed in my head like a lifeline. "We're honored to partner with you." Those words carried me through the next morning. When my dad tossed me a pair of gloves and barked, "Hedges overgrown. Get to it before the neighbors complain." I looked at the gloves. The leather was cracked, worn from years of me doing the same damn work. "I can't," I said quietly. His head snapped toward me. "What did you say?" "I can't," I repeated, louder this time. "I have meetings today. Calls. Work that matters." For a moment, the world went still. Then he laughed. "Meetings? You sound ridiculous. You think you're better than us now? You think you're too good to pick up a rake?" My mom appeared in the doorway, arms crossed, that smile tugging at her lips again. "Don't forget who puts a roof over your head, Claire. You wouldn't be anything without us." My heart cracked open. Not because of their cruelty, I was used to that. But because a part of me had still hoped, even after everything, that they might one day be proud of me. Instead, they wanted me small, invisible, bent over their yard until my back broke. I left the gloves on the porch and walked past them. My dad's voice chased me. "You walk out that door. Don't bother coming back asking for our help when it all blows up in your face." Help? I almost laughed. The only help I ever got from them was a list of chores and a pat on the shoulder if the floors shone bright enough. Outside, the air tasted different. Cleaner. Freer. And as I drove toward the city for my first round of post-deal meetings, a thought settled in me like a seed. One day, they wouldn't be able to ignore me. One day, their smirks would vanish. And when that day came, it wouldn't be me knocking on their door for approval. It would be the world holding me up so high they'd have to crane their necks just to see me. That was the first time I understood something dangerous. Success wasn't just freedom. It was revenge. The city became my escape. Glass towers instead of peeling paint. Boardrooms instead of backyards. And every time the CEO shook my hand, every time a client smiled across the table at me, I felt another layer of their control slip away. But Success has a strange echo, it bounces back home whether you invite it or not. The first check from the $3 million deal hit my account. The numbers glowed on my screen, more money than my parents had seen in their lifetimes. And yet, when I paid off my student loans, when I upgraded my car, when I wore clothes that didn't come from clearance bins, their reactions didn't soften. They hardened. "You're spending too much," my mom muttered one night as I came in wearing a blazer crisp enough to cut glass. "You'll end up broke. People like us don't stay rich. People like us." She couldn't see I was no longer like them. And my dad? He upped the chores, as if doubling my labor would drag me back to the ground. "Lawn's a mess. Get out there. Garage needs organizing. You've always been good with your hands. You think you're too important for this family now?" I bit my tongue until it bled. Because if I fought back, it would turn into war. And I wasn't ready for war. Not yet. But then came the dinner. A CEO gala, chandeliers dripping with light, tables covered in white cloth and crystal. I was seated right beside the man himself, who introduced me to everyone as the reason this deal even happened. Applause. Clinking glasses. Smiles that meant something. I'd never been so visible. So real. And when he said to the room, "Claire's future is brighter than anything I've seen in years," I almost forgot the wait waiting back home, almost, because when I returned, my dad was waiting at the door. "You think you're some kind of star now," he hissed. "You walk around with those people, you forget who you are. Don't you dare think you're better than this family." Better? No. But different? Absolutely. That night, I sat in my car in the driveway long after the house lights went dark. My reflection stared back at me from the windshield, hair pinned up, lipstick fading, eyes alive, and I whispered to myself, "They'll never clap for me. But the world already is." It was then I made a promise. If they wanted to bury me in chores, in silence, in their smallness, I'd let them dig their own hole. Because one day soon, I wouldn't just rise. I'd rise so high they'd choke on the dust of my ascent, and I wouldn't lift a finger to pull them out. Sabotage doesn't announce itself. It creeps in, subtle at first, like a leak in the roof you don't notice until the ceiling caves. It started with my laptop. I'd left it charging in the kitchen while I ran upstairs to grab some files. When I came back, the charger was gone. The cord, ripped. The laptop dead. "Must have been the cat," my dad said. Except we didn't have a cat, then it was my car. Nails in the driveway, glinting in the sunlight like teeth. 2 flats in 1 week. My mom shook her head innocently. "You really should be more careful, Claire. You're careless." Careless. That was their favorite word. As if years of cooking their dinners, mowing their lawns, fixing their leaks, had been the work of a careless girl. But the breaking point came one evening, just before another crucial meeting downtown. I'd hung my blazer, the one I'd saved for months to buy, on the door. When I reached for it, there was a deep brown stain smeared across the shoulder. Grease. My dad didn't even try to hide his grin. "You've got plenty of clothes," he said. "No need to act fancy." I stood there, staring at the ruined fabric, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. They weren't just ignoring my success anymore. They were trying to drag me back. But that night, something snapped. I walked into the living room, blazer still in my hands, and faced them both. "You think you can break me with this?" I asked. My voice was steady, too steady. It scared even me. "You think ruining my clothes, flattening my tires, breaking my things is going to stop me?" My mom raised an eyebrow, unfazed. "Don't blame us for your bad luck." And my dad leaned back in his chair, smirking like he'd already won. "You'll always come crawling back, Claire. Because out there, no one cares about you. We're all you've got." For the first time, I laughed. A sharp, bitter sound. Out there, people shake my hand and call me partner. Out there, I'm not your maid. I'm not your janitor. I'm not your shadow. Out there, I exist. Their smiles faltered. Just a flicker, but I saw it. And that flicker was enough to feed me. I walked out the door with my stained blazer and drove into the city lights like they were salvation. The grease on my shoulder burned, but it burned like fuel. Because if they wanted war, they'd just declared it, and I was done fighting with rakes and brooms. This battle would be waged with power, money, and the kind of success they couldn't scrub away. They wanted to remind me where I belonged. I'd show them. I belonged higher than they could ever reach. Revenge doesn't always start with fire. Sometimes it starts with silence, the kind that grows sharp, the kind that carves a path you didn't know you had. After that night, I stopped waiting for them to see me. Instead, I started planning how to make them feel me. The first move was subtle. I stopped answering their calls. Stopped rushing home when my mom texted, "We need you to fix the sink," or my dad barked, "Garage lights out." At first, they laughed. "She's just busy. She'll come back," my mom said. "She always does," my dad added, but days turned into weeks. And the weeks turned into distance, because while they sat in their living room, anchored to the same dusty couch, I was moving fast. The $3 million deal had unlocked doors I never imagined. Boardrooms. New contracts. A seat at tables where my name mattered, and with every step forward, I made sure my success was public. Photos in magazines. Features online. My name in bold headlines they couldn't escape. I didn't need to tell them. The world was telling them for me. Then came the gala, bigger than the first. A ballroom glittering with chandeliers, journalists snapping photos, investors whispering my name. I wore a new blazer, white as ice, a deliberate choice. The stain from my father's sabotage had been reborn into armor, and when the CEO took the stage, his words rang like a bell through the hall. "Claire Bennett closed one of the sharpest deals I've seen in decades. She's not just a partner. She's a force." Applause thundered. Cameras flashed. And somewhere, back home, I knew my parents were watching the news, their remote clutched tight, their smiles frozen. That was the night I decided silence wasn't enough. They needed to feel what I had felt, small, dismissed, invisible. So I invited them. An official email, crisp and polite: "Claire Bennett requests your presence at the upcoming investor dinner." No explanation. No apology. Just an invitation they couldn't ignore. When the night came, they arrived stiff and uncomfortable, my dad in a suit he hadn't worn in 20 years, my mom clutching her purse like a lifeline. They didn't belong there, not in that sea of diamonds and tailored suits. And I made sure they knew it. I didn't rush to greet them. I didn't smile or hold their hands. I let them sit at the edge of the room while I walked the stage, cameras flashing, voices chanting my name, and when I finally looked their way, our eyes locked across the glittering room. For the first time, my dad looked away first. And my mom's smile, that condescending, tight little smile, cracked. That was the beginning of my revenge. Not anger. Not shouting. Just power, because the higher I rose, the smaller they became. The night of the investor dinner haunted them. I could see it in the way my mom's texts turned sharper. Her words clawing through the screen: "Don't forget where you came from. Money doesn't change who you are. You think you're better than us now?" And my dad? He stopped asking for help with chores. He started demanding. "You owe us. After everything we've done for you. Who paid for your shoes when you were a kid? Who kept a roof over your head? You think you built yourself? You're nothing without us." Nothing. The word landed like a stone in my chest. But instead of crushing me, it ignited something I hadn't let myself feel before: fury, because I had built myself. I had clawed my way up while mowing their lawns, scrubbing their dishes, fixing their leaks. Every chore they dumped on me had been weight training for my resilience. Every dismissal had sharpened me into steel. So I stopped replying. And the silence drove them mad. One night, my mom showed up at my office. She barged past reception, her heels clicking on marble, her voice too loud for the glass walls. "This isn't you, Claire. You're embarrassing yourself. Acting like you belong with these people. You'll come crawling home when it all falls apart." The room went still. My colleagues turned, watching me. And for a split second, I felt the same shame I had carried for years. But then I stood. Straight. Calm. "This is me," I said, my voice cutting through the air like glass. "And I will never crawl again." Security escorted her out. Her eyes burned holes into me as the doors closed, but what she didn't know, that humiliation she felt, that crack in her perfect control, it was nothing compared to what was coming, because the CEO had just offered me something bigger. A partnership worth tens of millions. My name on a deal that would flood headlines across the country. And he wanted me to lead the announcement. I could already picture it, my face on screens, my name in lights, my success undeniable. And I wanted them there. Not as guests. Not as family. As spectators, the same way I had sat in their living room, invisible. While they turned up the TV and ignored me, I would put them in the back row of my empire and force them to watch what they had tried to bury. That night, I lay awake, the city lights painting my ceiling gold. And I whispered to myself, they wanted me on my knees. I'll make them kneel with their eyes. Revenge was no longer just a fantasy. It was a stage, and the curtain was about to rise. The night of the announcement shimmered like a dream. A hotel ballroom carved from glass and gold, chandeliers raining light onto polished floors. Rows of investors, executives, reporters, their cameras hungry, their eyes sharp, and at the back of the room, just where I wanted them, sat my parents. My dad in a wrinkled suit that clung awkwardly to his frame. My mom's lips tight, her gaze darting around like she wanted to shrink into her seat. They didn't belong here. And for once, they knew it. The CEO stepped up first, his voice filling the room. We're here to celebrate a deal that will reshape our industry, a partnership worth tens of millions. And none of this would have been possible without one woman. He turned to me. Claire Bennett. Applause thundered. I walked to the stage, my heels clicking like drumbeats, my white blazer glowing under the lights. The cameras flashed, capturing me, not their maid, not their janitor, but the woman who had built her own empire. When I reached the podium, I paused. I could feel their eyes burning into me from the back row. My dad's jaw clenched. My mom's fake smile trembling, and I spoke. Growing up, I was told my worth was in chores. That I was useful for mowing lawns, scrubbing floors, fixing what was broken. I was told I belonged in silence, in shadows, in service. The room hushed. Every word fell like stone, but I learned something. The same hands that scrubbed floors can build futures. The same back bent in a yard can carry the weight of an empire. And the same girl they tried to keep small, I let my eyes cut to the back row, locking onto them, now stands taller than they ever imagined. Gasps rippled through the room. The applause came again, louder this time, rolling like thunder. I stepped away from the podium, shaking hands, smiling for cameras, the CEO at my side. And when I finally looked back one more time, I saw it, the crack I had been waiting for. My dad's face was pale, his fists clenched, his eyes refusing to meet mine. And my mom? Her smile was gone. Her lips pressed thin, her eyes wet. For the first time in my life, they couldn't speak. And their silence was the sweetest sound I had ever heard. That night, as the city lights glowed outside and my name trended across headlines, I knew revenge had taken root. But it wasn't finished. Not yet, because humiliation was only the beginning. Justice was still waiting. My parents never saw me as anything but their janitor. While my brother relaxed, I was the one mowing lawns, scrubbing floors, patching leaks. Even when I closed a $3 million deal and shook hands with a millionaire CEO who said, "We're honored to partner with you," my dad just smirked and said I was strong with yard work. My mom's smile froze. Her eyes full of dismissal, but success has a way of making silence loud. I stopped answering their calls, stopped being their built-in servant, and the world started clapping for me instead. Magazine features, gala invitations, and rooms full of people who finally saw me. And when I stood on stage in my white blazer, the cameras flashing, the CEO beside me praising my name, I locked eyes with them in the back row, their faces pale, their pride crumbling. That was my revenge. I didn't scream or beg. I just made them sit in a room where the world celebrated me while they shrank into the shadows. For once, they were the ones left invisible, and I was the one who owned the stage.